Sex has become synonymous with shame, taboo, and pornography in modern society. It's whispered, hidden, packaged, sold behind closed doors or online anonymity. But what if I told you that 2,000 years ago, in the heart of ancient Rome, sex was not something to be feared, but something to be celebrated? Let's step back in time. To a world where erotic art wasn't censored. It was worshipped. Where phalluses were not obscene, they were sacred symbols of luck and fertility. Where brothels operated openly under the gaze of society, not in its shadows. This is the sexual truth of ancient Rome. In the ruins of Pompeii, preserved beneath volcanic ash, we find walls decorated with graphic, unapologetic erotic art. Not hidden in bedrooms, but in public places, taverns, bathhouses, even temples. To the Romans, eroticism was a part of everyday life. It wasn't dirty. It wasn't secret. It was human. Across ancient Rome, phallic carvings adorned homes, storefronts, even street corners. They weren't vulgar, they were powerful. A symbol of phos, divine will. A charm against the evil eye. A wish for prosperity. Sexual imagery wasn't scandalous. It was sacred, spiritual, and everywhere. Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, and sexuality, was one of Rome's most important deities. She wasn't just a romantic figure. She was the divine embodiment of desire and fertility. To honor her was not sinful. It was sacred. Sex wasn't indulgence. It was part of the divine order. Now, Roman society wasn't a sexual utopia. It had its own rules. Its own double standards. Men were permitted many liberties, so long as their behavior upheld their dignity. Women? Their sexuality was more closely monitored, especially among the elite. But even then, there existed a spectrum of experiences and stories. We find erotic poetry written by and about women. We find accounts of powerful female figures, mistresses, muses, and provocateurs. Roman poets like Ovid, Catullus, and Martial wrote openly, often graphically, about sex. Love. Lust. Infidelity. Same-sex passion. They weren't censored. They were celebrated. In The Art of Love, Ovid gives cheeky tips on seduction. In satires, Juvenal attacks hypocrisy, not sex itself. The written word gave voice to the Roman view. Sex wasn't inherently immoral. Hypocrisy was. Let's talk about prostitution. Yes, it was legal. Yes, it was taxed. And yes, it was everywhere. From luxurious brothels to street corners, Rome had an open sexual economy. Some prostitutes were slaves, others freed women or even men. It was part of Roman life. And it wasn't hidden. And what about same-sex love? Rome didn't think in modern terms of straight or gay. Sexuality was about roles, not identity. A freeborn Roman male could sleep with men or women, so long as he maintained a dominant role. For women, same-sex relationships existed too, though less documented. There were limits, yes. There were prejudices. But they were different from today. So what happened? Why did this openness vanish? The answer lies in the shift from pagan Rome to Christian Rome. With the rise of Christianity came new moral codes, ones that tied sex to sin. Desire became something to suppress. Celibacy became sacred. Erotic art was buried, literally and figuratively. And so, what was once celebrated, became forbidden. For centuries, Roman sexual culture was erased or hidden. In 1752, when Pompeii was excavated, the erotic frescoes shocked Europe. They were locked away in the secret cabinet of the Naples Museum. Viewable only by men deemed morally sound. We didn't understand Rome. Or maybe, we didn't want to. But today, we're rediscovering it. Piece by piece. fresco by fresco, poem by poem. The Romans were not perfect. Their society had injustice, inequality, and exploitation. But they remind us of a truth we often forget. Sex is not shameful. Desire is not dirty. Our bodies are not enemies, they are ancient, sacred, and human. 2,000 years ago, sex was not sin. It was life, art, ritual, power. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we remember that again. What does it say about us? That we hide what they displayed. That we blush at what they carved in stone. We call the Romans conquerors, engineers, emperors. But we rarely call them what they truly were. Students of the body. Explorers of desire. Architects of eroticism. In Roman villas, the bedrooms weren't private, they were public. Guests would dine near walls painted with scenes of lovers, gods, and pleasure. These weren't lewd. They were invitations. To witness, to imagine, to accept. The Romans didn't separate the body from the soul. To touch was to worship. To desire was to live. Let's enter the Lupanar, the most famous brothel of Pompeii. Its walls still whisper. Each room holds a stone bed. Above it, a painted scene, a man and woman in positions our textbooks never mention. This wasn't pornography. It was advertising. And beyond that, it was myth, story, instruction. Graffiti scrawled in Latin remains on the brothel walls. I came here and had a good time. Fortunata took all my worries away. Gaius loves Daphne. Crude? Maybe. But honest. In a time before social media, this was their status update. Their love letter. Their legacy. In Roman bathhouses, men and women mingled. Steam and water softened the boundaries. There, the naked body was stripped of shame. It simply was. Rich and poor, slave and senator, bathing in the same pools. Flirting. Conversing. Touching. Not always with intent, but never with fear. Let's talk about Roman marriages. They weren't always about love. They were contracts, alliances. But outside those contracts, passion found its place. Mistresses were acknowledged. Affairs were not always scandal. Sex wasn't morality. It was politics. It was currency. It was part of survival. Even the gods did not abstain. Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, they all seduced, betrayed, and loved in myth. Aphrodite and Venus were one. A goddess of beauty, fertility, pleasure, and vengeance. Their stories weren't bedtime tales. They were reflections of life. Of lust. Of betrayal. Of longing. The phallus was not censored in Rome. It was cast in bronze and hung around children's necks, for protection. It was etched into pavements to guide people toward prosperity, or sometimes, to brothels. Modern minds see vulgarity. Roman minds saw vitality. In homes, couples kept statues of Priapus, the god of abundance and gardens. He stood eternally erect, grinning, a reminder of fertility and growth. To honor him was to bless the household. Today we would hide such a thing in shame. Then, it was displayed with pride. The laws of Rome didn't outlaw sex. They outlawed dishonor. Adultery laws punished elite women, not for desire, but for inheritance threats. Men were judged not for sex, but for losing control.